5 years, 1,825 days, no Father's Day text, no Christmas call, not even a single word when my own son, her brother, was lowered into the ground. I stood at that funeral alone, staring at an empty seat where my daughter should have been, and I finally understood something no father ever wants to admit out loud. She was gone, not dead. Worse, she had chosen to be gone. And I had swallowed that silence for so long, it had become the flavor of my whole life. I stopped waiting for the phone to ring. I stopped checking my email on birthdays. I trained myself to eat dinner without setting a second plate on the table by accident. I made peace with the shape of the hole she left behind. Then, at 11:47 on a quiet Tuesday night, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, and every wall I had spent 5 years cementing brick by brick collapsed in the space of 4 heartbeats. I did not recognize the number on the screen, but I recognized the person behind it before my thumb ever touched the message. You do not forget your own daughter's number. Not after 28 years of dialing it. Not after 5 years of staring at it in your contacts, wondering if today is the day you finally hit send. My hand actually trembled picking up that phone. Not from anger. From something far more dangerous. Hope. That stubborn, stupid, beautiful thing that never fully dies in a father's chest, no matter how many times it gets buried. I read the message once. My brain refused it. I read it twice. My stomach dropped. I read it a third time, and the room felt colder than it should have been in July. Dad, I saw the post on Facebook. We need to talk. I am booking a table at the Capitol Grill Friday at 7. Bring $150,000 with you, or do not bother showing up. I sat down at my own kitchen table like somebody had cut the strings holding me upright. There it was. Not I miss you. Not I am sorry. Not how have you been, Dad. A demand. A price tag. My own daughter, 5 years silent, and her first words to me were an invoice. Stay with me tonight. Because what happened at that restaurant 3 nights later, and what came pounding on my front door 6 days after that, is going to haunt you the same way it haunts me. Hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you are watching from. And subscribe, because this story is only just beginning to twist, and you are not going to want to miss where it lands. Most men would have hurled that phone across the kitchen. Part of me wanted to, but another part, that stubborn, hopeful, father-shaped piece of me that refuses to die no matter how many times it gets stabbed, whispered something quieter. Maybe she has changed. Maybe this is her clumsy, ugly way of reaching back. Maybe if you just show up, Mike, you can fix this. I did not reply that night. I could not. I was scared. Genuinely scared. Because I knew if I called her and she hung up on me, I would not survive another 5 years of that silence. I walked through my own house like a ghost visiting his own life. The hallway where I had penciled her height on the doorframe every birthday until she was 14 and told me she was too old for that now. The kitchen, where I had taught her to flip pancakes so badly we ended up wearing more batter than we ate, laughing so hard she cried. I stopped outside her old bedroom door. It had been closed for 5 years. I did not open it that night either. I just pressed my palm flat against the wood, and I let myself remember the last time I saw her inside it. She was 23, standing in my living room, screaming at me because I would not drain my retirement to fund her boyfriend's startup. A different boyfriend. A different scheme. A trailer for a movie I did not yet know I was going to be forced to watch. If you cannot take care of me, why did you bring me into the world? Those were the last words she screamed at me before the door slammed so hard 2 picture frames fell off the wall in the hallway. Glass everywhere. She did not look back. Not that night. Not for 5 years. I went back down to the kitchen. I picked the phone up again. And this time I read her message out loud. Just to hear how those words sounded in my own voice, in my own house, at nearly 2 in the morning. Bring $150,000 with you, or do not bother showing up. 28 years I raised that girl. Taught her to ride a bike on the green at Amberley Village. Sat up all night when strep throat nearly put her in the hospital in 4th grade. Paid for braces. For cheerleading camp. for a car she wrecked 8 months after I put the keys in her hand. And it all came down to this: a number, a dinner reservation, a price of admission to my own daughter's life. I need to tell you about her mother, because none of this happened in a vacuum. Evelyn and I split 12 years ago. Amicable on paper, ugly underneath. She got half of everything and burned through most of it on bad investments and vacations she could not afford. Somewhere in there, she stopped seeing me as her ex-husband and started seeing me as a resource, a backup account with legs. And she raised our daughter to see me exactly the same way. 6 years of your father is cheap. Your father never really loved us enough to give us more, until Taylor believed it the way a child believes the sky is blue. I found an old photograph in a kitchen drawer that same night. Taylor's high school graduation. Both of us grinning like fools. My arm around her shoulder. So proud I could barely stand still for the camera. I stared at that photo for a long, long time. I did not know it then, but she was already becoming somebody else's daughter. Somebody else's idea of who I was supposed to be. So here is what I told myself, sitting at that kitchen table at 2 in the morning with a photograph in one hand and a text message in the other. She is 28 now. She is engaged. Maybe she has finally seen her mother clearly. Maybe she is reaching for her father the only way she still knows how. Maybe those 3 words buried in that ransom demand actually meant something. We need to talk. I grabbed onto those 3 words the way a drowning man grabs a life ring. It did not matter that they were surrounded by a price tag. I needed them to mean something. But I was wrong. And you have no idea yet just how wrong. I waited a full day before I replied. By Tuesday, I had agreed to the dinner. But I want to be clear about something, because what I did next matters. I did not hire a private investigator. I did not want to trap my own daughter in some elaborate sting. I just wanted to know, as any father would, who exactly my little girl was about to marry. His name was Devin. Taylor told me in the one brief phone call we had setting up the dinner that he was a wealth management associate at some boutique firm downtown. Brilliant, she said. Successful. Going places. The way she said it, you would think the man walked on water and hung the moon in his spare time. So Tuesday night, I poured a cup of coffee, sat down at my computer, and told myself I was just being a curious dad. His firm's website looked sharp. Clean design, professional headshots. Devin shaking hands with men in expensive suits at some charity gala. Okay, I thought, maybe she actually found a good one this time. Maybe I am about to feel like an idiot for worrying. Then I found the first crack. A lawsuit filed 2 years ago. Settled quietly. No public details. In my old business, when a part came back with even the smallest defect, you did not shrug it off. You traced it back to the source. Because a small flaw in the machining always meant a bigger problem hiding underneath it. Turns out people are exactly the same. I kept digging. A second lawsuit. Same pattern. Clients claiming their investments had simply evaporated. I pulled the corporate filings for his firm. Registered addresses that turned out to be P.O. boxes and strip mall mailrooms. Partners listed on the website who, as far as I could find, did not exist anywhere. Not on LinkedIn. Not on a single business filing. Ghosts wearing borrowed suits and stock photographs. I sat back in that chair and I remember thinking, very calmly, very quietly, something is very wrong with this man, and my daughter is about to marry him. I did not call her that night. I did not call the police. I closed the laptop, finished my coffee gone cold, and told myself I would know more by Friday. But I did not yet know just how deep this rabbit hole went. Because what I found on Wednesday night was not a red flag. It was a 5-alarm fire with my daughter standing directly on top of it. Wednesday, just after midnight, I found the regulatory disclosures. A formal enforcement inquiry had been quietly docketed 3 weeks earlier. An emergency freeze request on his firm's primary operating account. I read those public filings 3 times, the same way I had read Taylor's text a week before. But this time, my hands were not shaking. They were steady. Cold, almost. Because in my old shop, When you found a flaw that deep and apart, you did not get emotional about it. You got precise. You traced every single line back to where it started. So I traced it. Through county property records. Through court judgments. Tax liens stacked on top of defaulting banknotes like unpaid bills stuffed in a shoebox. A mortgage on a house in North Hills that a man with his declared income had absolutely no business owning. Subpoenas from former clients demanding account reconciliations that would never come. This was not a man living large off smart investments. This was a man running a classic Ponzi shuffle on fumes, patching one hole with another client's savings, praying the whole rickety apparatus held together just long enough to marry into a fresh source of capital. My money. My $150,000 sitting there in that text message like fresh bait on a rusted hook. The demand was not an advance on an inheritance. It was not a wedding gift. It was a lifeline. He needed liquid cash immediately to stave off an impending criminal indictment before the receivers took over his accounts. And if I wired that money, I would not be funding a wedding. I would be personally funding a fraud scheme. With my own two hands. Just because I loved my daughter enough to want to believe her. I printed every page, the lawsuits, the shell registrations, the enforcement notice, the debts. I put it all into one plain manila folder, the same kind I used to keep quality control reports in back at the shop. And I sat at my kitchen table for a long, long time, just staring at that folder like it might catch fire on its own. Most men would have called the police that night, or called Taylor and screamed at her down the line. That was not my play. My play was simple. Go to the dinner. Show her the truth. Calm. Steady. Father to daughter. Save her from a man who was about to take her down with him. And maybe, just maybe, get my little girl back in the process. I did not know it yet, sitting there Wednesday night with that folder closed in front of me. But she was not going to let me do any of it easy. Friday came faster than I wanted. I dressed the way I have dressed for every important moment of my life. Plain dress shirt. The navy blazer I have owned for 15 years. The one Evelyn used to say made me look like a substitute teacher. I did not care. I was not going there to impress anyone. I was going there to see my daughter's face for the first time in 5 years. I drove the Mercedes. I could not really avoid it. It was the only car I own now, a gift to myself after 32 years of 60-hour work weeks. And it was the photograph of that car on my Facebook page that had prompted her text in the first place. The post she had seen that made her realize her stingy old man might actually have liquidity worth harvesting. Rain came down light on the windshield the whole way down Cary Parkway. Wiper slow. Radio off. I did not want noise. I wanted to think. The Capitol Grill sits in one of those upscale shopping centers off the parkway. Warm lighting, dark wood. Waiters who look like they went to finishing school. I have been there maybe 3 times in my life. Always for something that mattered. This mattered more than any of them. I saw them before they saw me. Taylor was sitting in a booth toward the back, in a dress that probably cost more than my first car did, back when cars still cost what a car should cost. Next to her sat a man I only knew from a stock photo headshot on a firm's website. Devin. Tailored suit. Dark hair combed back. The kind of smile that looks warm right up until you notice it never quite reaches the eyes. Taylor did not look up. She was on her phone, thumb scrolling fast, like she was already bored of a father she had not seen in 5 years. Devin saw me first, and he smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile a salesman gives you right before he tells you the extended warranty is really in your best interest. I sat down. The manila folder rested on my lap, out of sight beneath the table's edge. Taylor finally looked up from her phone. You came. Like it was a surprise. Like part of her had been hoping I would not. 5 years of silence. And that was the greeting. Not hi, Dad. Not it is good to see you. Just quiet surprise that I had bothered to show up at all. I told you I would be here, I said, as gently as I could manage. The first 10 minutes were about as comfortable as a root canal without Novocaine. Devin did most of the talking. Taylor sipped a glass of wine that, based on the menu I glanced at, cost more than what I used to pay some of my machinists per hour when I first opened the shop. "So Mike," Devin said, leaning back like he owned the booth. "Taylor tells me you were in, what was it, logistics? Manufacturing? Precision machining," I said. "Ran a CNC shop for 32 years. Right. Right. That is interesting." He said it the way you say something is interesting when it absolutely is not. "I have got a couple clients in that space," he added. "Small operations mostly. Not quite my level, obviously. But respectable little businesses." He was talking down to me, at my own daughter's table, like I had not put a roof over her head for 18 years with that small operation, and Taylor did not correct him. Did not say a single word in my defense. Just nodded and took another sip of wine. Like watching a stranger belittle her father in real time was just another Friday evening for her. "Dad," she said after a minute, setting the glass down, "we have something important to discuss. We do not want to waste your time." There it was, right on schedule. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document, slid it across the white tablecloth toward me like she was closing a business deal instead of speaking to her own father. Devin leaned forward, elbows on the table, and his voice actually dropped into something warmer, more reasonable, like he was doing me an enormous kindness just by explaining the terms. "Look, Mike," he said, "we know you and Taylor have had a rough patch. 5 years is a long time. But she is willing to put that behind her. Let you back into her life, properly. All you have to do is sign this agreement, wire the $150,000 to the account listed on page 2 by tomorrow morning, and you get the honor of walking your only daughter down the aisle." I did not move. I did not blink. He said honor like he was handing me a gift. Like I should be thanking him for the privilege of paying admission to my own daughter's wedding. I looked at Taylor, waited for her to jump in, to correct him. "To say that is not really how I meant it, Dad." She did not. She just watched me with a look I recognized. Cold, patient, calculating. Her mother's eyes. "Exactly. Consider it in advance on my inheritance, Dad," Taylor said. Flat. Matter of fact. Like she was reading off a grocery list. "You're driving a $150,000 sports car. Do not tell me you do not have it. It is your duty as my father." Duty. 28 years. And that was the word she landed on. Not love, not family. Duty. The guy was a contractor who had fallen behind on an invoice. Somewhere behind us, a piano was playing something soft and pleasant, completely at odds with what was happening at our table. I could hear my own heartbeat over it. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Like something inside my chest had decided it needed to make sure I was still paying attention. I kept my face calm. I want you to understand that took everything I had, because inside, something that had been holding on by a single thread for 5 straight years finally snapped clean in half. They were not inviting me back into their lives. They were selling me a seat at the table, and they expected me to be grateful for the price. I did not raise my voice. I have never been a man who raises his voice when it matters most. 32 years in that shop taught me the calmer you are when something has gone wrong, the more likely you are to actually fix it. I placed both hands flat on the table, looked past Devin entirely, straight at my daughter, like he was not even sitting there. "Taylor," I said, "steady, quiet. I need Devin to step away from the table for 5 minutes, please. Just you and me. I have something in this folder I need to show you privately." She glanced sideways at Devin. He did not move an inch, just crossed his arms, leaned back in his chair like he had all the time in the world, smiled that same salesman's smile. "Anything you have to say to your daughter," he said, "you can say in front of her fiancé Mike." I did not look at him, would not give him the satisfaction. "Taylor," I said again, keeping my eyes locked on hers. "Please listen to me as your father. Give me 5 minutes. This is not about the money." There was a long silence. I watched something shift behind her eyes. Not softness. Not the daughter I remembered. Annoyance. Like I was the inconvenience at this table, not the man who had raised her. "No, Dad," she snapped, loud enough that a couple at the next table glanced over. "Whatever you have to say, you say it right here. Devin is my future husband. We are a team. Stop trying to play mind games and divide us. A team. She used the word team like I was the opposing side. Are you going to take care of me like a father should, she said. Colder now. Or are you just here to waste our time again? Again. Like showing up 5 years later on her terms at her price made me the one who kept letting her down. I sat there and looked at her. Really looked at her. Past the dress. Past the wine. Past the ring on her finger that a con man had bought with somebody else's stolen money. And I saw the same girl who had screamed at me in my living room 5 years earlier and slammed a door so hard the pictures fell off the wall. She did not want a father. She wanted a mark, and she was completely fine with that. Sitting right there in front of me, sipping wine like it was nothing. And that was the exact moment something inside me broke in a way I did not know a father could break, because it hurt worse than anything Evelyn had ever done to me in the divorce. Worse than the 6 years of poison she had poured into our daughter's ear. I could not save her. Not as she did not want saving. I slid the pin away from me. Back across the tablecloth. Untouched. I reached down, picked up the manila folder from my lap, and set it gently in the middle of the table, right between the wine glasses and that ridiculous agreement with my name printed on a signature line. Everything you need to know about who you are marrying is in that folder, Taylor, I said, calm, even. The same voice I used to use walking a nervous new hire through a machine that could take his fingers off if he was not careful. 5 years ago, you stood in my living room and asked me why I brought you into the world if I could not take care of you. I came here tonight, after 5 years of silence, hoping I could protect you from making the worst mistake of your life, and you will not even give me 5 minutes to be your father. I looked at Devin then, held his eyes steady. I am not signing this document, I said. I am not wiring a single dollar. Nobody said anything. The piano kept playing somewhere behind us, soft and stupid and completely wrong for the moment. I reached into my wallet, pulled out $100 bill, laid it down next to my glass of water, which I had not touched once the entire dinner. I stood up, buttoned my jacket the same way I used to before walking into a client meeting worth a year's revenue. Goodbye, Taylor, I said, and I walked. I did not look back. I could feel them behind me. The confusion, the anger, maybe even the beginning of fear. Though I doubted either of them yet understood what was actually sitting in that folder. I walked past the hostess stand, out the front doors, into the cool, wet parking lot air. Rain still coming down, light and steady under the lights. I got in the Mercedes, sat there a long moment before I even started the engine, hands on the wheel, heart still pounding like I had just walked out of surgery instead of a dinner where I had just walked away from my daughter again. But this time it felt different sitting there in that parking lot with the rain on the windshield. This time I was not running from her. I was walking away from whatever she had let herself become. I drove home feeling hollowed out, wrung dry, like something in my chest had been surgically removed, but underneath all of that, quiet, small, almost embarrassed to admit it was there. I felt something else too. I had given her the truth, every last page of it, sitting right there in that folder. Whether she opened it or let it sit on that table and rot. That was not my choice to make anymore, and I had no idea, driving home under those streetlights, just how fast that folder was going to catch up with both of them, or how loud the silence was about to get before my phone rang again. If you are still with me, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, drop a single word in the comments telling me how you would have handled that dinner, and make sure you are subscribed. Because what happened 3 nights later on the local news, and what showed up on my porch 6 days after that, is where this story stops being about a folder and starts being about who my daughter really was underneath all of it. The knock on my door came 3 days later, and it did not sound like Knuckles. It sounded like somebody trying to break through wood with their bare hands. But before I get to that, you need to understand what happened in between, because the 2 days of silence after I walked out of the Capitol Grill were the loudest 2 days of my life. And I did not have to say a single word. I drove home that Friday night soaked through with rain and something heavier than rain, and I did not sleep much. Saturday, I puttered around the house, cut the grass in my own backyard off Amberley Church Road, even though it did not need it yet, just to have something to do with my hands. Sunday, I went to church, said a prayer I was not sure I believed in, for a daughter I was not sure still existed the way I remembered her. Came home to an empty house that felt about 10 times bigger than it had a week before. I did not call Taylor. She did not call me. I told myself she had either opened that folder and was sitting with the truth right now, or she had tossed it in a drawer and decided her father was just being cruel and jealous one more time. Monday night, I found out which one it was. I was sitting in my recliner with the local news on low volume. More background noise than anything else. Half paying attention while I read the paper. Then the anchor's voice changed. That little lift reporters get when a story's actually got some teeth to it. Breaking news tonight out of North Hills, she said. Federal agents have arrested a local wealth management associate on charges of grand larceny, wire fraud, and embezzlement. Sources tell us the arrest took place at the suspect's own engagement party. I put the paper down slow, like moving too fast might make the moment disappear. The footage cut to video, some guest's phone recording, shaky party lights, a string quartet frozen mid-song, a beautiful venue, white flowers everywhere, the kind of place that costs more per hour than most people make in a month. And there she was, my daughter, in a white dress, laughing about something, holding a champagne glass, completely unaware that her entire world was about to collapse in the next 30 seconds. Then 2 men in dark jackets walked in through a side door. Calm, unhurried. The way people walk when they already know exactly how this ends. I watched my daughter's face go through about 4 different emotions in the space of 5 seconds. Confusion first. Then a kind of blank disbelief. Then horror. Real horror. The kind you cannot fake for a camera. The kind you only see once or twice in a lifetime if you are lucky. They put Devin in handcuffs right there in front of what looked like 60, 70 guests. Read him his rights while the string quartet just sat there, bows down, not knowing what else to do. And as they led him past her, my daughter, my little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap watching cartoons, screamed something into that shaky phone camera that I will never forget as long as I live. This is your fault. Someone did this to us. I turned the television off, sat there in the dark living room for a long time. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator in the next room. I did not feel triumphant. I want to be honest with you about that. Because it would be easy to say I felt vindicated, that justice had been served, that it felt good. It did not. I felt tired, sad in a way that sat heavy in my chest like a stone, and underneath all of that, way down at the bottom, something I had not let myself feel in 5 years. A little bit free, I made myself a cup of coffee I did not really want, and I waited. Because I already knew what was coming. Devin was gone. The wedding was gone. Whatever illusion Taylor had built her whole life around for the last 2 years was gone. Dismantled live on the local news for anybody with a cable subscription to watch. And when everything a person has built collapses at once, they do not usually reach for a stranger. They reach for whoever is left. I was the only one left. Over the next 48 hours, the fallout rippled outward exactly the way I knew it would. News outlets picked up the story, flashing Devin's mugshot across regional papers alongside quotes from victims whose life savings had evaporated into his shell accounts. Taylor's name was inevitably dragged through the commentary. The socialite fiancé caught in the splash zone of a federal bust. Part of me wanted to reach out, to shield her from the public humiliation, but I forced my hand away from the phone. Because she needed to hit the floor of this reality without a cushion, or she would never learn to stand on her own feet. So I waited. Wednesday night, 3 days after the arrest. I was sitting right here in this same living room, coffee cup in my hand. The house quiet the way it has been quiet for 5 years now. Peaceful in its own way. The kind of peaceful you get used to. even if you never stop missing what used to be loud. Then I heard it, pounding on the front door, fast and desperate, and underneath it, a voice I had not heard in person in 5 years, cracking apart with every word. "Dad, please open the door. I need you." I set the coffee cup down, walked to the door slow, because some part of me needed those extra few seconds to get ready for whatever was on the other side of it. I opened the door, and there she was, mascara running black down both cheeks. The same designer dress from the engagement party, except now it was wrinkled and torn along the hem. One strap hanging loose off her shoulder like she had not even bothered to change clothes in 3 days. Her eyes were red and swollen, the kind of swollen that only comes from crying so long your body just runs out of tears and starts producing something worse. "Dad," she said, practically collapsing against the doorframe. "My life is completely ruined. Devin was arrested. The venue canceled everything. Why did you not stop him?" I stood there and let that land. Let every single word of it hang in the air between us. She was looking for somebody to blame, somebody to scream at, somebody to spink it. And in that moment, standing on my own front porch, I realized she still did not get it, not even a little. I stepped out onto the porch instead of letting her in, and I pulled the door mostly closed behind me. "I sat 3 feet away from you at that restaurant, Taylor," I said, keeping my voice calm, steady. The same voice I used when a piece came off the machine wrong and somebody needed to hear the truth without panicking. "I begged you for 5 minutes of your time, 5 minutes to try to save you, and you told me I meant nothing to you unless I handed over a check." Her sobbing got louder. "I did not know he was a criminal. He lied to me." "I know he lied to you," I said. "That is exactly why I tried to show you the truth. It was sitting right there in that folder, Taylor. The lawsuits, the audit, all of it. But you would not listen. You would not even give me 5 minutes. You chose him over me. And now you have to live with that choice." "What am I supposed to do now?" she said. And her voice cracked so bad on the last word it barely came out as a word at all. She looked at me like I could wave a hand and make all of it disappear. Like I had not already tried exactly that 3 days ago at a table with a manila folder and a $100 bill. I let the silence sit a moment before I answered her, because I needed her to actually hear what came next, not just wait for it to be over. "I will pay for your therapy," I said, "and I will make sure you have food on your table, because I am your father, and I love you. And that does not stop just because you hurt me, but your luxury wedding, your lifestyle, and your entitlement. That is over, Taylor. You have to rebuild your own life now." She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept going, gentle but immovable. Like a wall, she was not going to talk her way through this time. "You wanted to be treated like an adult," I said, "so I am treating you like one. Adults face the consequences of their choices. This is yours." She started to say something else. I could see it forming. Another excuse. Another argument. Another way to make this my fault. And I let her get about 2 words in before I spoke again, softer this time, because underneath everything, she was still my daughter, and some things do not stop being true no matter how bad it gets. "I love you," I said. "I will always love you. But I cannot fix this for you. I can only be here when you are ready to do the work yourself." She stood there crying, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for the right words and coming up empty. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The rain was coming down a little harder now, and I could see her shivering in that thin dress. "Please, Dad," she whispered. "I do not have anywhere else to go." "You have a home," I said, holding her gaze. "My door will be open when you are ready to come inside as my daughter. Not as a creditor collecting a debt, but until you are ready to do the hard work of taking responsibility for your choices. I cannot carry this for you." She stood there in the damp air, her mouth opening slightly. The panic in her face was starting to give way to something far heavier. The slow, crushing weight of real regret settling onto her shoulders for the first time in her life. I stepped back into the entryway, and I closed the door. Slow, gentle. I did not lock her out of malice. I did it because boundaries mean nothing if you move them the second things get uncomfortable. Through the glass panel beside the door, I watched her stand under the porch light for a long moment before she turned and walked slowly back to her car. I returned to the living room, and I sat down in my recliner. Outside, her car engine started up, idled for a moment, and then faded down the street. The house returned to silence. I picked up my coffee cup from the side table. It had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. I did not feel triumphant. There was no victory in watching my daughter's world shatter, even if she had built it on sand. All I had done was refuse to be the foundation for another man's lie. I want you to sit with something for a moment before you go. Somewhere out there tonight, there is a father with an empty seat at his kitchen table. There is a mother staring at a phone that will not ring. There is a parent who has been made to feel that love is measured in dollar signs. If that father is you, if that mother is you, if you have ever been treated like an ATM by the very people you would have laid your life down for, I need you to hear this next part clearly, because it is the whole reason I am telling you any of this. Loving somebody is not the same thing as carrying them. Carrying somebody who refuses to walk on their own is not love. It is slow drowning for both of you. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life was not building a business from nothing. It was not burying my son. It was not signing divorce papers on a marriage I had given 20 years to. The hardest thing I've ever done was close my own front door on my only daughter, standing in the rain, and trust that the ground would be there under her feet when she finally learned how to stand on it. I do not know if Taylor will ever step through that front door again. That is not in my hands anymore. Some nights I sit in this recliner and I imagine the sound of her key in the lock. Some nights I imagine the porch stays empty forever. Both possibilities live in this house with me now, and I have made peace with both. Because sometimes protecting the people you love does not mean saving them from the fall. Sometimes it just means being clear about where the ground actually is, and having the courage to let them figure out how to stand back up on their own. If this story reached something in you tonight, if you have ever been the parent standing in that doorway, or the child on the other side of it, before you scrolled away and the story faded into the noise of your day, do 3 things for me. Hit that like button, because every single like tells the algorithm to put this story in front of another parent who desperately needs to hear it tonight. Drop a comment below and tell me, would you have opened the folder? Would you have signed the check? Would you have closed the door? I read every single comment. And your story might be the one that helps somebody else find their footing. And if you are not already subscribed, tap that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because I have more stories coming. Stories about fathers, about daughters, about the moments that break us and the moments that finally set us free. And I do not want you to miss a single one. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. Thank you for listening to a story I did not know how to tell for 5 long years. I will see you in the next one.